All right. Welcome to the green room. You're in the green room with Reid Whatley. Um, say hey, Reid.
Hey, folks, welcome. Great to be here today. Great to be anywhere.
Right. All right. I just we've been talking so much over this last week. You've been following some of my things, and uh, you've been sending me stuff about this. What where we started talking about making money and getting relief and assistance, and you've been sending me all this stuff, and it's been helpful. I got to tell you, it's trying to keep up on that and read all that stuff is it's been hard. There's
Not to mention the 400 some odd plus page CARES Act,
right.
which is the stimulus bill, which I should sit down and read sometime and see if I can even grasp a small fraction of it.
Yeah, you
See what's going to apply to us.
right. Well, you sent me something, and I wanted to. Well, before we start talking about all the money, all the
Yeah,
money stuff.
all the money because there's so much money,
Um,
so much money hemorrhaging.
you know, I got to tell you, I did a preview commentary about my experience with trying to get some money today, hoping that people would tune in and share their story. But before we do that, you s- you were telling me a little bit about your history with music, and you
Yes.
sent me some pictures, and I want to start with this one um, first because this is about you, and then I wanted you to tell me about before that and your parents. But this one is a picture of you at playing, and I recognize the place right away. And you can't see it, but it's up on the screen, and people are seeing it. It is a picture of
Yeah, and I'm trying to dial up the show on my iPad next to me on a different device so I can see what you're doing. But that's okay. Go ahead. You can describe it.
so this is a picture of you, and you said, "Here's a picture of me playing with Hal Blaine," and there's Hal Blaine, and I said to you, "That's the baked potato," and you said, "Yes, it is."
Yep, you know your clubs.
So, that the baked potato is only 2 miles from where I live right now.
Oh, great.
Yeah, and I never go down there now that it's close. But
Well, you can't go
right,
anywhere.
well, that is true. And so tell me what's going on in this picture, and tell me how.
what's going on in that what's going on in that picture is if I look at that picture now and as I've studied the Wrecking Crew, it seems more incomprehensible that even happened. That I played with those guys. So Steve Douglas as well, for those of you looking, is in the photograph as well. And as you know, Hal Blaine and Steve Douglas both uh, very very crucial, important Wrecking Crew members. Steve Douglas, man, the nicest cat. Those guys were so funny. They were so personable. They were so laid back. So yeah, we Steve put together a band in '92.
Mhm.
Probably I would have to say it was the end of '91 into '92, and it was the Steve Douglas band. We played the Sweetwater in Mill Valley.
Mhm.
We opened for Los Lobos at I'm trying to remember the name of the theater up in Petaluma, up in North Bay, and then we had a baked potato run as well. Now, I actually played I played drums and electronic drums in the band before Hal got in, and I remember sitting down with my recording studio partner at the time, John Main. We sat down and we're hanging out, and John says, "I have some news to tell you. Hal Blaine's joining the band," and I just about passed out. It was just incredible. And at the time I hadn't studied the Wrecking Crew, but I remember, my mind went back to New Jersey where I was born and raised, and I remember knowing about Hal Blaine in the 70s, in the early 70s. I remember talking to a musician friend of mine, high school friend, but at that time he was just this mythical um, the character. We heard the name, we didn't know exactly what he did, but we knew he was a crucial name. So anyway, yeah, I had this run in the Steve Douglas band, and when Hal joined, I moved over to electronic and acoustic percussion and second keyboards because those are all instruments I play, as well as more recently I'm playing upright bass and electric bass.
So in this picture, that's Hal on drums. The bass player is who?
Robin
And the
Sylvester,
sax player?
that's Steve Douglas of the Wrecking Crew, whom Brian Wilson says was his favorite horn player and contractor, and Byron Allred
Uh-huh.
was in the band at the same time, I believe. And an interesting thing about the Wrecking Crew movie, because I have since talked to Denny Tedesco, Tommy Tedesco's son, who obviously produced and wrote the movie and spearheaded that whole thing. One of his big regrets was that he wasn't able to interview Steve, because Steve died in '92, which was during the time I was in the Steve Douglas band.
Uh,
And yeah, it was just a real shocker. I think Steve was in his 50s, and I remember him telling us he had his first heart attack when he was 25.
wow.
So he was predisposed for heart conditions, but I guess he was in the studio with Ry Cooder, as I remember the story, and you know,
Well,
died died doing what he loves.
yeah.
And
Well, here's the thing as a musician too, growing up in Nebraska and not all that knowledgeable. My perception of who Hal Blaine was that he was a jazz guy. And
uh,
I had no idea until I got here and I told you the story of going to see him and Sarah Vaughan getting up and singing. It's at that time I started discovering that he was the guy playing it, did all Beach Boys records and the whole Wrecking Crew and all that stuff. It was, uh, man, the stuff that he did was amazing. I had no idea, you know.
it's mind
Yeah.
blowing. Sometimes I'm in my car. Well, I'll actually go back to when I was in the band. When I was in the band, I also had a full time position um, at a local cruise company here in San Francisco, and so I would wake up early, relatively early to a musician's point of reference. And at the time, my clock radio was on a pop music station,
Uh-huh.
and I was also reading Hal's book at the same time, Hal Blaine and the Wrecking Crew. And every morning, I swear to clock radio would come on, and it'd be Hal Blaine on a track because I was reading his discography. And you are right to some degree, to a very good degree, that Hal and all those guys were a great bulk of those guys, as anyone has followed the Wrecking Crew story, they were jazz musicians and at night, and they did studio sessions during the day, and they, as everyone knows, they hammered out, sometimes 3, 4, 5 sessions a day,
Right.
never ever thinking that this trite music would become, obviously as classic as it was. They were just working. They were supporting their families, and Carol Kay especially talks about that story.
Mm.
You know, feeding her family and being able to afford to play jazz.
Man, so I wanna you mentioned, and I'm gonna jump now, back, but you mentioned, working on a boat, and you sent me a picture which I failed to find, a picture of you playing bass with all these beautiful women standing around you, and
Oh yeah, yeah. That's
I can't find it.
I, I could probably throw it straight at you now if you want.
Yeah, no,
Uh,
but
yeah, that was just I'm a ham, and we'll get into that in terms of you're going to talk about. I hope you talk about my dad.
yes,
And if you don't, I'll make you, because it's the reason I am.
okay, so
The reason I am who I am is because my dad was an entertainer. My dad was a magician. So anyway, getting back to that story about the girls on the boat. Frequently at the end of a cruise, the hey, group photo, and they'll all come up, and I'll grab my bass and just photobomb. That's basically what I did.
Yeah.
And people are so enamored with the upright bass, even in spite of how poorly I play it. It's a lovely it's a lovely piece of furniture, and I can get into any photograph with that.
Right. Yeah,
So
if you can email it to me, that'd be great. Then I can actually load it while we're talking.
yeah, so that's what happened there. They came up, I photobombed, and of course, oh, here it is. It's right here. Um, I'm going to save it. I'm going to email it. Yeah, that's what happened there. And I what can I say? I love being around
Yeah,
people.
and I
That's why this shelter at home thing's driving me
right.
nuts. And folks, those of you listening, I may go into entertainment mode, pathetic entertainment mode, because I need a crowd. I need a crowd.
All right. Well, while I'm waiting for that picture, let's go to your dad. Now you sent me some pictures of your dad. The amazing Blackstone.
Blackstone, the world's foremost magician,
So
is how he is what he called himself. And those of you familiar with magic know that Blackstone and Carter the Amazing, I think was how he went, are like some of the original innovators of magic. And my dad somehow or another schmoozed his way into the Blackstone show in the late 40s, and he worked with Harry Blackstone in the show for about 4 years, I think. And I remember my dad, I wish I had more stories
mm,
about Blackstone because the guy's legendary.
okay, so continue.
Yeah, so my dad, I don't know where we left off, but I'll just say I had a very non-traditional upbringing in that both of my parents were entertainers. My mom was a jazz singer in the big band era. Um, my dad was a magician, and somehow he schmoozed himself into the Blackstone show in the late 40s. Harry Blackstone Sr., those of you who don't know who Harry Blackstone was, he and Houdini were perceived rivals, but they were actually friends. And Blackstone, for example, when I tell magicians that I see on gigs, hey, and here's this picture of my dad with in the Blackstone show, they're just completely mind blown. It'd be like if I told you I worked with John Lennon or something like that.
Right.
So I remember my dad telling me that they went to gigs on trains. So you can imagine that, loading up all that magic gear, which of course was seriously analog in the 40s.
Right.
And I also remember my dad telling me about going to Canada one time, and uh, a saw illusion didn't work quite right because the electricity was different. I mean, I don't believe anybody got hurt or anything like that, but yeah, that. So getting to my upbringing, my parents always had day gigs. And the other thing they told us too when we were young was me and my two brothers, who also play music, was, you know, we fully support yourself in music, but have a backup plan, which was very, very, very smart. And I'm sure everyone can relate. That picture he's showing now is my father is second from the left. And Blackstone, of course, is in the center. But,
So
and my dad also, go
that
ahead.
picture there, the one you're seeing is with all the people. Is that the whole Blackstone show?
At that given time, yeah, which is sometime in the late 40s.
Wow.
And what's interesting about that photo too is my brother found that photo in a book somewhere. So that's not part of our like family archives.
Wow.
He found that in a book, and we looked at it, and yeah, that's dad, all right. And so yeah, back to the backup plan thing, which I'm sure everybody, all how many are listening? 4 right now?
I have no idea. One,
Okay. That's my typical crowd. Thank you.
two. I usually got my kids, and they have to listen to me because they're my kids.
Right. So yeah, my parents they always said, we fully support you in music, but you better have a backup plan. And they knew from firsthand experience
Mm,
because they did gigs. When my mom was singing, union scale was 50 cents a night and a loaf of bread was 5 cents. I remember my mom telling me that.
wow.
My mom dated Charlie Barnett for a short period of time. When my parents were dating, they were in a club, and I guess my dad went to the bathroom, and when he came back, my mom had disappeared.
Uh,
Well, turns out she had found her way backstage in the green room to meet Louis Armstrong.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, so that was pretty cool. But anyway, the backup plan thing, my upbringing. Oh, the other thing my dad said too was, "I'll teach you everything you want to know about magic, but you got to be 100% committed." And the way my dad was, being a sleight of hand and somewhat illusionist, scared the crap out of us with that statement. I remember him looking at us, we were just terrified. So and then we fell into music. But my upbringing as well in New Jersey was, even though my parents stopped stopped gigging and entertaining as a profession, that didn't stop them from having jazzers over in the basement, in our rec room, and parties and instruments everywhere. So, that was my upbringing, and no more than anyone on the planet were my parents e- e- extremely proud and almost in disbelief that I had eked out a steady living as a musician and an entertainer. I've been on the same gig for 35 years right now.
Yeah.
And well, I can't say right now because everything's stopped.
So,
But
uh,
yeah.
I'm gonna throw up a picture of your mom. I believe this is her. Is that the band? I know it's a little delayed, but it's a picture of a band, and she's sitting in front of a piano. It's a big band.
Yeah.
Um, and so that's it. And then another picture of your mom. There's a group of ladies. No, there's a guy
Hmm.
in there. There's a couple of guys in there. Is that like musicians or?
Oh, that's just the reason I sent that one is because I'm also going to look it up here because I got it right here on my phone. That was just kind of a, here's a hang in the 40s.
Uh-huh.
Um, I'm not sure if any of those were musicians,
Oh,
but it's just, the reason I sent that is just like, there's your hang,
right.
there's your 40s hang, and
Oh,
that's mom on the right.
oh,
Um,
sorry. I'll go back to it. Yep. Your
and
mom's
that's
on the right in the front.
uh-huh
Cool.
with the strapless dress, looking like a looking like a female vocalist.
Right? All right. So now here's one with she's standing in front of the Charlie
Charlie Donnelly.
Orchestra. Yeah.
Yeah, she was like 18 in that picture, so that would have been
Holy cow.
1940, 1943.
Jeez. And
And
go
and
ahead.
just within the last month, I looked up Charlie Donnelly, and I found his obituary, and he was still alive when my mom was alive, and I wish I'd hooked the two of them up. And it turns out Charlie Donnelly, he was actually Charlie O'Donnelly. So you could
Huh.
see. I mean, I'm just guessing that in the 40s, you know, no, it was an Italian name. I'm sorry, it wasn't. It was an Italian name, and you could see that he changed his name probably for the reasons of prejudice against Italians and immigrants.
Yeah. All
You
right.
know,
I'm gonna throw up another picture of your mom here. It's she's standing in front of a drummer and looks like it's a trumpet or a clarinet guy playing next to her.
is it the one that says proof?
No,
No.
no, this is
Okay.
um I can't. I've got to
Is
see.
she holding them? Is she holding the maracas?
Yeah, yeah. Let me look closer at it.
Yeah, it's the maraca shot.
Yeah. Yeah. Um,
Yeah, that's interesting. You know, man, if my mom was still alive, we could figure that out. It says 1947 on it. I'll tell you that.
oh, yeah. Holy cow.
Top right, top right corner says 1947, and the bass drum says AP, and there's a trumpet player,
Yeah.
and it's anybody's guess. So mom was 22 there.
Wow. And then the one I'm going to put the one that says proof up there. Now that looks more like a 50s thing.
The proof?
Yeah.
No, that would be 60s. We were certainly in New Jersey by then.
Uh-huh.
And certainly the P bass,
Oh,
which I'm like lusting after every time I see this photograph.
right.
Yeah, the P bass would indicate. Yeah, that has to be in the 60s.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
and you know, mom stirred the soup on the cocktail drum, but I remember her telling me she hated it.
Really?
But it sure looks cool.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So then I've got one more picture, and I believe this is of your mom, like uh, later. And she a red hair, color picture, singing.
Oh yeah, that was her swan song at the retirement center. She hadn't sang in publicly in, good God, probably, well, no, excuse me. And another shot I didn't send you was her sitting in with Red Garland,
Oh,
uh, which I'll try to get to you at some point. Well, let me say this: Mom had sat in from time to time, uh,
huh?
but certainly not within the last 20 or 30 years of her life. Singing was not real prevalent. So anyway, yeah, that photograph, she's singing at the retirement home. She got a little band together in Wichita Falls, Texas. I
Mhm.
helped her with her charts. I sent charts down there, and there is a video on YouTube of that performance that her best friend took. And mom had worked for many many years as a court reporter in Wichita Falls, Texas, many years after my parents moved from New Jersey.
Mhm. Mhm.
So, and proof positive that we never lose the music, we never lose the desire.
Right. Well, let's move on to now, and I'm still having on my own end silly technical difficulties. I can't load up the picture of you with all of the girls, which is killing me because all of there's a girl directly behind you in the black dress that I like. I want to know who she is.
She was my favorite too.
Oh, okay. So I do. I think I might have a way that I can actually show this, even though I can't load it into my switcher. Um,
Right.
there might be a way I can at least show this a little
I
bit.
I I have a way of showing it.
Um, okay.
we're gonna go we're gonna go real primitive here.
Right. Okay. Yes.
Let's see.
Oh,
Let me try to square that up.
that's perfect. There you are with let me make you full so everybody can see this. All right. So there you are playing bass and you've got all these gorgeous women standing around you and there's a girl standing behind you in a black dress that I so want to meet. Hopefully you will tell me she's single.
Yeah, she's off my right shoulder.
Yeah. Yeah.
Probably some out of town. Oh, that was Mom's Night Out. I think that might have been Mom's Night Out. I do remember a cruise where all. Oh yeah, wow.
Of course.
Yeah, yeah. I think now it's coming back to me. You know how it is, folks, when you do thousands of gigs.
Right.
When you do thousands of gigs and make tens of dollars.
Right. So tell me,
Anyway, yeah, that was Mom's Night Out. I remember now. They were all getting away from the family.
yeah, well, moms need that once in a while. But
Yep.
well, let me ask you about that gig because of all of the things that as musicians we do or don't get to do is be able to come up with a gig that is steady and consistent, that pays reasonable amount of money over an extended period of time, which
Mm-hmm.
you've been able to somehow manage, which is sort of unlike a whole lot of people. And tell us about that because we were talking last night. I've had people on from all the different aspects of the music business, and this is one that a lot of people we haven't touched on is the cruise business. There's the big cruise lines, and then
Hmm.
all of these little bay cruises and up the Mississippi River,
Right.
all those kinds of things. Tell us a little bit about that.
Um, the, my involvement with this particular cruise line is kind of odd because my oldest brother, went to North Texas State University in '69. He met a bone player there. Turns out this bone player lives in a township right next to us. Turns out he has a brother. Those guys used to come to jam sessions at my house, and we're talking like 1969, 1971 period. And then fast forward to probably around 1984, where I had since moved to California, and I see in a venue here in San Francisco, the brother of the bone player. Turns out he's the musical director for this cruise line, and winds up using me as an independent contractor, drummer, kind of on and off. And then in '92, they get this new boat that's karaoke and DJ driven, and asks me if I want to. I interview and audition and apply for musical and technical director.
Mhm.
And then I wound up learning how to DJ on the job. Learn while you earn, of course, one of my favorite things to do.
Right.
And but I don't know. I think a lot of being able to maintain that gig for a long period of time is just pretty much being willing to do anything.
Mm.
And I consciously remember when I went to college in Marin, which, by the way, when I came out here, I worked a couple of crappy jobs in California, and somebody said, you can get paid to go to school. And I'm like, really? I had a couple of crappy jobs, and I got grants to go to college in Marin. I took the music program, and I remember one day going, I don't care what I do in the music business. I don't care what it is. I don't care what style it is. And at the time, I was just completely a drummer. If I'm moving my hands, I'm honing my skill and applying it to whatever. I don't care what it is. I'm not going to, certainly I have my own tastes,
Mhm.
but I'm not going to turn up my nose at some kind of music. I mean, yeah, there's some stuff nowadays that I certainly don't want to put my musicianship on the line to learn and play, but I've always felt like if I can have any chunk of the music slash entertainment world, I'll take it, because I feel like that's my calling. And I've also been able to, some people will disagree with me. I've also been able to, have a knack to entertain people, which I know came from my dad being a stand-up comic, magician, you know, type of type of personality. So, I think that's the whole thing. Being able to keep that gig long enough is, somebody asks me to do something, I do it because it's gonna support me.
Right. Well, this also brings us sort of a lead in on that gig is sort of a lead in to what we've been talking about too in terms of losing income and working. And then also we talked a little bit last night about the AB5 rule. Um,
Hmm.
and I
Can I jump back just a step before AB5?
yes,
Because I have something to say.
yes.
A lot of people would probably say that I sold out. Some of the things that I do,
Mhm.
that I'm willing to do. But what I want to say is, um, Kenny G sold out. He sold out in Dallas. He sold out in New York.
Oh,
He sold out in LA. He sold out in Chicago.
right.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I hear the virtual applause. Okay, thank you. Thank you. We're going to applaud
Well,
ourselves here.
well, we also talked a little bit about that, and this can open up a whole can of worms that you and I have talked about this last week about when the business comes back, are we going to be asked to go out and work for less money now because people know that we're starving or that we're not making money, and um, and we before that though we had touched on the employee employer AB5 kind of thing, and how we as musicians have always sort of thought that we were um, independent contractors, but not necessarily are we really independent contractors in the state's eyes, but only in our eyes, and we just weren't making enough money to get caught.
Yeah. I'm going to jump back to your first element, which was um, people are going to know we're hungry and we're going to be, desperate for work. That might be one aspect of it, but I think the other aspect of it is every business that's going to survive this thing, that's going to be around, they're going to be leaner and meaner just from the get-go.
Mhm.
Because they're going to want to get their wings. They're going to want to take the excess baggage out of the baggage compartment to make sure they get enough lift to get up in the air. So that's going to be an aspect of it too. Um, I think we'll see. I think we'll see relief shows though, which will carry on the legacy of music. There's going to be benefits and stuff, which is nice because that'll carry on the legacy that music has as an important part of our lives.
How quickly do you think we're going to return to normal and be able to perform? For example, your long run with Hornblower Yachts and the work you've been doing there. When do you can you even guess at when to they will return to being able to function and employ you again?
I don't know, even before because I've been with the organization for such a long time, way before thinking of myself, I think, how can they handle a shutdown of Alcatraz cruises, which is part of their thing?
Mhm.
You know, just everything. How we're all, from the very bottom guy. How am I gonna keep paying my expenses with nothing coming in? And that's the first thing I think about with them is, and with any organization is you're how do you stay afloat, so to speak, when there's nothing coming in and you got bills to pay. And some of us have more bills than others.
Right.
um, if we've pared down our lifestyle and cut away at our credit card debt, then we have a stronger chance to survive. And you could say the same thing for a big business. How big are their loans? What do they have on the line? So I don't know. I'm personally, I can't judge when somebody's coming back. There's just too much unknown about the current situation. But I'm planning on hunkering down for 3 months, and I hope I'm surprised. And I like what one professional said. I don't know if it was Fauci, but it said, "Let us do too much right now to protect our future, so that in the future we won't have to say, well, God, we should have done such and such. We would have gained more time. We would have gained more foothold." And I say to anybody that's listening, wear that mask, wear those gloves when you go out as little as possible. Uh, you know, flatten the curve, like they're saying.
Right. Well, let me ask you, in terms of finding financial assistance, you sent me something about the Employment Development Department and a letter they'd sent you, right? Isn't that the one?
They didn't send me a letter. No, that wasn't me.
What was the you sent me a copy. Let me pull it up because it was um, the letter from the was that from the musicians union that you got?
I got an email from the musicians union,
Yeah,
yes, stating what would be what they thought was coming down the pike.
right. And I also got a text today about explaining the relief that we're supposed to be getting from the government in the $600 and the $1,200 and that sort of thing. And quite honestly, that money, if I actually get that much money, because there are some qualifications to some of it, my understanding, but that was part of what we were hoping to talk about to know the real nuts and bolts about that. But by the time that $1,200 gets here, I'm gone. I mean, it's too late for me.
Uh,
It really is for me. So, um, uh, I want to just go through some of this that I got here is a list, and you can just bear with me for a second. Somebody emailed a, oh man, I'm always doing this wrong. Excuse me while I'm making all my switches so I get us both up there on the screen, and you're above your name. Okay, so here is a list of things that we can all do. Filing for unemployment due to COVID. Well, I can't file for unemployment because I don't have an employer. National funds, there's a rapid response fund that's available, and there's a link to that. There is disabled creator and activist pandemic relief fund, and a link to that. And I can maybe post this on my, I let my website go. I no longer have a website because I can't afford it. There's also a Foundation of Contemporary Arts and Artists Relief Fund. There is Sweet Relief Musicians Fund. There is a Musicians Foundation Fund. Now, Craft Emergency Relief Fund, PEN American Writers Emergency Fund, and those are just the national funds. And then there's a list of local funds. Now, here's the thing: as I'm reading some of those off, uh, trying to find out if I'm even eligible for a lot of those kinds of things. Uh, and then by the time I fill the paperwork out and get it, I'm not so sure I will get it in time. I just don't see how all of these funds, what I need is somebody to walk up and say, here's $4,000. This will get you through the next 2 months. That's what I need.
Right.
And I don't see any way of any of that happening. And if there is some sort of relief like that, the amount of work and effort that we have to go through to try to get that money to show that we're qualified to be able to have that money is ridiculous. I mean, it's
Well, I mean, I can address that, and
okay.
that aside from setting up web shows, what else are you doing with your time? I'm being a little facetious, but I know you have your family and you have whatever your home upkeep. But I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I want to go back to the first thing you said, which was unemployment.
Right.
It's as I've been trying to dig into this employment and they unemployment, and they say that there is some unemployment benefits available to the independent contractor. I have yet to witness what is the mechanism for getting that. So I'm kind of, I don't know. I was hoping to get my unemployment claim today. I got a couple of letters. One is they're just checking on some status and I have to mail it back.
Mhm.
So I don't have my claim number, but for those of you watching, I have two types of jobs. I have a part-time a part-time W-2 job,
Mhm.
which enabled me to apply for unemployment, and then I have all this independent contracting. Um, I would love to get back into my claim,
Yeah.
which I can't do until I get the number, to see have they modified that, or what is the mechanism going to be to get. I think it was $600 a week for giggers, and forgive me if that's wrong. Um, what's the mechanism to get that money to the independent contractors? Is it your tax return? Is that the mechanism, or will unemployment be the mechanism? Some type of application process there. And I don't have the answer to that. I wish I did.
Yeah, and I trying to get through to my tax guy is kind of like it been ridiculous the last couple of days to ask him some of those questions. And then we were also talking a little bit about how not only this relief and trying to get money for not being employed, but the other thing that's affecting this is California gigging musicians is the AB5 rule. Uh,
Yeah.
and you had a little bit of experience with that. I haven't had any because I have not. The work that I've been doing has been uh, W-2 so far this year, but I haven't really been working that much.
Yeah, and I don't know. My thing with the AB5, I think it still has yet to play out. Many industries have gotten waivers on it. People are still fighting against it. And at the end of the year, I'm not going to say at the end of the day because that's
Right.
a cliche. At the end of the year, um, it remains to be seen how enforceable will that be. And when they come after the person writing the check to that independent contractor, how are they to know that you hired a guy or you didn't rent a trumpet?
Right,
You know,
right. You
I mean that could be. I don't know. I'm not telling anybody to lie or anything or uh, to be misleading, but
well, I'll do it.
it,
I'll be the first to say, "Pay for my drum and not me."
yeah, exactly. You're paying for my drums and not me.
Right?
Exactly.
Um,
So yeah, that thing is just what an abysmal law.
yeah,
And the other interesting thing too. Now, of course, there are all kinds of categories of miscellaneous income, but the 1099 form is still available on the IRS website.
yeah. Yeah, and we're still gonna be able to be claim that my understanding is only California, the state of California is the only ones enforcing the
Uh,
law. Isn't that true? And
I guess you're right about that. It is a California law. It's a ridiculous.
well,
Uh,
I think the
it's
place
ridiculous.
for me to move would be Oregon. Or
Okay.
Oregon seems to be, kinda cool, kinda taking care of themselves. Um, somebody posted something, and this is, off topic, but is it Holland, that is paying, they're taking care of 75% of all of the people's wages in that country. The government is just taking care of 75% of the people's wages, just
Wow.
blanket. And I don't know if that's accurate or correct information, but when you've got a government or a country that actually is concerned about taking care of their citizens, they do stuff like that. They just go, "Okay,
Yeah.
don't worry about it. We'll just cover you." And
Yeah.
then it's relief. But in this country, in this, I know we're going to come up with more questions than we are answers. Uh,
And that's okay.
uh, but in this country, if you've got enough to ride this out, you can just kind of sit there and you can make your payments, and everybody's going to leave you alone. But if you don't have enough money, they're going to fight you to get your money, and you got to jump through hoops, and nobody's going to magically just give you a magic wand and go, okay, we're going to cover you, we're going to give you some relief. That isn't going to happen. They're going to make it hard for you to get your money and enough money to cover your bills. That's just
Yeah.
experience. And for those are the people who actually lose their homes right now. If you lose your home, it's going to be a steal for somebody who has money. They're just waiting, like they did in 2008, to jump in and start buying shit up. And
Yeah.
I know it's kind of a dark picture, but that's sort of how it's went. I mean, that's how it happened in 2008. Now I made it through 2008. It was rough. I didn't work for a year, but I had some savings and some financial assistance from my family, that's my parents that are gone now. And I was living with somebody at the time, so we wrote it out. But
Yeah.
I'm alone now, and
Mm.
there's no help from anywhere. So what I I'm just kind of ranting on my story, but my point is there are just so many people in this same boat that
Yeah.
and I just don't know where they can turn quick enough. And
And it remains to be seen. I saw this thing. I forget who this professional was, but said that oh yeah, checks in 3 weeks. Well, because of budget cuts and because of
mhm,
aged technology in the IRS, really they're going to get out those checks in 3 weeks. There's some professional who business analyst said, you'll be lucky if the IRS can get out those checks in 3 months. I
yeah.
don't know if that's true, but it was
Well,
it was reported in a number of news articles. So it's like you can also see the lawmakers going, oh, we got this great stimulus plan, but not having the mechanism on the other end to facilitate it.
right, unless it's money to a big corporation. So
Ouch.
that's gonna be easy for the companies to get. That
Yeah.
the big corporations are it's gonna work out for them, but it's the individuals, it's those of us, and the one thing that you and I have talked about, this whole gigging idea and the gigging community. is finally the light is being shown on it a little bit, uh, through all of this, and there's a little bit of awareness to the community of people that work the way we do, which is separate from wait servers in restaurants, but we make our money the same way, and there's this whole group of us in this gigging community that are going to be devastated. And I've said this, and we've talked about this. We're the first people to lose our jobs, and we'll be the last people to get hired back.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And we're not alone as musicians. I mean, there's a lot of people that are in this gigging economy, and it has to be addressed. And I think I have faith. I think it has yet to be played out. I mean, I think for a lot of people it's not going to be enough. It's probably not going to be enough stimulus. And I think one of the, if you don't have cash reserves, one of the only other options is talk to your landlord, talk to your creditors. Don't just stop payment. I've read this countless times recently in terms of, how do you ride this thing out? Open that communication line, because there are there are mechanisms in place for you to,
Well,
to not make that payment for a month or two, and
well, I'm going to argue that because my experience right now is no, there are not. There
okay.
and just with my own local Burbank utilities company, she said the best I can do is try to figure out a way for you to get current before we can even talk about giving you a breather for a month.
Oh, because you're behind.
Well, I didn't pay this month, right?
Oh, this month.
This month I owe $182 for this month. And
Oh my God, they're being that hardcore.
yes, and she said, "So you have to come current by April 19th, then you can apply for a relief of $100, and we can let you go for another month, and then
Uh,
talk again." That's just in Burbank, right? That's my experience. And when I call my car, I've tried calling to get my car payment, deferment, and I was on hold 3 different days for over 2 hours, and finally, this voice keeps coming on saying, "Okay, well, go to the website, go to the website." The only thing I'm allowed to do on the website is defer the payment and accrue additional interest while I'm waiting.
yeah, and I've seen that's what they do. You defer the payment, but the interest still accrues, which is, yeah.
So what I'm saying is the lines of communication are kind of sucking because not only do you have to wait because everybody's calling in, but they're not saying, you know what, don't worry about it, we're going to take care of it. Just we'll work with you. But no, they're what they're doing is giving me numbers to call to try to get relief so I can try to get current before they
Yeah.
me. So
Well, they're also dealing with massive losses as well. You can see why they're being conservative. Is everybody is dealing with the same thing.
yeah, well, exactly.
It's brutal.
So it's almost, why even call? Because all it did for me is make me feel embarrassed and humiliated that I couldn't. And not that she was trying to make me feel bad, but she was saying, "Sorry, there's nothing I can do. You're just going to have to get current before I can only help you try to get current." I'm like, "Come on, man, it's
Oh, wow.
so so." Uh, what I'm wondering is there a way that we could just get the government to say, you know what? Let's just cool it. Let's just 3 months. Everybody just stop worrying about paying charge. Just stop filling up the phone lines and resource centers and backing up the lines for 3 hours, and let's just worry about eating.
Yeah, eating and staying healthy. I mean, it really is down to that right now. It really is down to that. I mean, you have to eat and stay healthy.
That's it.
And a lot of people can't get current on their utility bill, or, you know, yeah.
Yeah, so that's just my story, and I've been I'm 60. You and I are the same age. I'm 61, and I played drums my whole like you, and uh, you know you've been fine, and you're going to be fine, and I'd been fine, and I found myself in this sort of odd position of actually not being fine, and it just kinda caught me off guard. I'd never really had any idea that all of a sudden I wouldn't be able to work.
Mm,
I just
yeah.
and I did apply for an Amazon Flex driver, and it's like an Uber thing, and you can go out and choose like a block of 4 hours and make deliveries. And
Hmm.
every day I sign it, but they don't have any deliveries for me. And yet they're
Mm,
backed up. So, it takes a minute to get into that system. So,
right.
uh, I'm kind of like stuck. And what I was hoping is that some people would tune in and try to call in and say, "Hey, I've learned this. I found this out." Uh,
Yeah, I don't think we have that many viewers today. We're unpopular.
well, it's not just you, it's me. I rarely get it. I rarely get a lot of viewers. They get tired of hearing me talk.
And for those of you watching, cheery interview, huh? Sorry.
But uh, uh, I mean, you and I have actually been talking. You've been sending me things, and I've been reading, and I just don't know where to go with it. And I was hoping that I would be able to come up with some answers, and I haven't been able to, other than just ignore everything for a couple of months until somebody shows up at my door and says, "Give me the keys to your car."
Oh, God.
Says, "Give me the keys
Well,
to your house."
if I can quote our leader, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. We'll wait and see what happens.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. In a couple of months, it'll be fine. It'll all go away.
Yeah,
It'll be like
we'll
magic.
see. We'll see what happens. I saw something disturbing yesterday, which is he wants to put his he wants to put his signature on all the stimulus checks.
Yeah, I don't want to check. And the $600, $1,200 ain't going to help. It's going to be too little, too late.
Well, and the sick thing about it is it's narcissistic, and
Right?
it's kind of like sending out a campaign slip to everybody,
Yeah. Right?
with his signature on it.
Yeah.
I literally got sick to my stomach.
I know. I thought when you sent that to me, I was yeah, yeah, me too. It just sort of angers me. So, and that's another thing that I've stopped. If I turn on TV and there's anything
Yeah,
or any of the news, I just turn it off. And I
yeah,
And the only thing that really has been keeping me sane is doing this, talking. I've spent more time on the phone talking with you and talking to other folks and just trying to, like, just preparing for this, showing the pictures of your family and your history and hearing about, you and Hal Blaine. I mean, come on. I mean, that's really cool.
and by the way, folks, I had dinner in a private home with Charles Mingus in 1969 when I was 11,
Oh, man.
which was a weird one,
Yeah.
which was cool. But I wasn't super hip to who Mingus was at the time. I had a friend who moved to Jersey. His mom was Mingus's manager, and she later married him. And yeah, we went and saw Mingus play. And
Wow.
but look at me now.
All I want to know is I want to when Hornblower Yachts comes back and you're working and you're out there and you have a mom's night out, get me on the boat. Get me, I want to meet that really cute. Now you made the mistake. I've become a fan of Asian people, and uh, and it you had said your wife is Japanese.
Hmm.
And my good friend who I know you've got to know, Jimmy Sanchez,
Yeah.
and he's married this beautiful Thai lady, and, I'm trying to get him on to take me on a trip through his village, and we can only, FaceTime, but I've figured out a way to get him on, and as he walks through his village and he shows me all the pictures of those beautiful Thai ladies, I'm going, "Dude, I'm moving there, save me a place."
Yeah, it's pretty cool. He's got himself a little bit of paradise there, and it's great. There's no hoarding of anything. They grow what they eat and they catch what they eat, and
Right?
yeah, it's pretty cool.
It is, and the last time I talked to him just a week ago, we FaceTimed, and he took me on a tour, and I said, "I really wanna do this on my show." And he said, "Look at these people that could not be more poor than any other place in the world, but they're happy. They're
Yep.
all extremely happy people." And
Yep.
unlike here, you know, the hoarding thing seems to have disappeared a little bit. With
Hmm.
panic buying where, okay, people stock up for 5 weeks of stuff and then leave it for guys like me that just shop every 2 days. And,
Right.
so, uh, that's that sort of disappeared a little bit. So hopefully that'll stop. But you're right.
Well, I'd hate to see a diarrhea virus break out right now because people would buy up all the nasal spray.
I Oh man, you should do you said you've been working on a stand-up routine. That's what we got to do. You get a little routine together and a little magic,
Yep.
and then I'll have you back on. You can do your stand-up and some magic.
And pretty much whenever I tell a joke, the crowd goes mild.
Oh man. So that reminds me of, way back when I was a kid for a short time, and I'm from Nebraska, and whenever I go back to visit, I pick up a couple of gigs. And I picked up this gig with a guy called named Johnny Ray Gomez. He was an accordion player, and he did a nightclub act, and he did this nightclub act in Omaha. And he had the same jokes he would tell over and over.
Sounds like me.
Right? The one joke that he'd tell every night, and I had to do a rim shot, and he goes, "Okay, when I tell this joke, you do a rim shot and a bada boom." So the joke is, I'm staying in the hotel next door, and the walls are really thin, and in the middle of the night, I heard this, oh Henry," and I go, "Snicker, snicker," and,
Oh God.
and he said, "It makes me hungry," and you have to know about an O. Henry chocolate bar and a Snickers bar, and it just was dumb, but anyway, enough of that.
The cat skills lives on. My dad was a part of that heritage for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we didn't necessarily we talk about, basically, I complained about no money, and neither one of us have any real answers, to how to get money or anything. I'm
It's
hoping,
okay to pose the question.
yes. So, maybe if people watch back, they'll go like, "Man, those guys were asking the kind of questions I wanna know," and maybe somebody will come up with an answer rather than just send me a link, you know,
Hmm.
I mean, and I've got links upon links upon links upon links, and all of them, as I dig through them, don't apply to me. I, they serve no purpose to me, especially the Grammys. Oh, try the Grammys. I'm not a recording artist. Recording artist. I,
Hmm.
the Grammys don't want to have anything to do with me. They want to help somebody that's in the recording academy.
I will say something because, and I was going to say it before you touched on the unemployment aspect of it. If unemployment is going to benefit giggers, maybe it would behoove you and anyone who is a gigger, a 1099 guy or gal, to go to the unemployment development site and at least try to open a case. At least create give your email address and password and get in there and navigate around because like I said, I run those both of those worlds, having a W-2 job, a part-time W-2 job, and a bunch of 1099 stuff, and I entered all that stuff in there. Now I think I erroneously entered 1099 income as employment, but I'm going to as employment with an organization, but I'm going to get back in there and change it. But you can get in there and start navigating around, and perhaps they've modified the site to to apply to giggers. But once again, I don't know how what the mechanism of getting that gig support stimulus is. Is it
Yeah,
once again? Is it the tax return or is it the unemployment site?
you
Who
know,
knows?
yeah. So we'll be able to talk. I'm sure as the information comes out, this is
Yeah,
going to develop really slowly,
yeah,
unfortunately. and we may not have answers for another week, 2 weeks, or maybe even until the end of April. Who knows?
The wheels of bureaucracy.
Yes. So, well, we've been on now for 49 minutes in addition to the first 15 we'd already started.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's 10 after 4. I probably ought to wrap it up. And
Yeah,
I mean, I mean, we can have plenty more conversations.
absolutely. I think if I have a closing remark, I'd like to say of all the interviews I've done, this one is definitely the most recent. Thank you.
Bada boom. You know, where's the
I need to get back out on the stage. I'm going nuts.
All right. Well, Reid, it's been a pleasure, and we keep talking, and this is keeping me sane doing all this, and I'm going to take us out with a little bit more of this latest Tower of Power record because I just love them, and I'll close.
Me too. And thanks for what you do.
Yeah, thank you, Reid, and we'll.